this is Julie with Beadaholique, and in this video I'm going to show you how to make a pretty little pendant, and we're going to be using EnviroTex jewelry clay, which is a two-part epoxy clay. I'm going to show you how to color it with a transparent resin dye, and then also how to embed objects into it. So a couple different things to cover technique-wise in this video. So like I mentioned before, we're going to be using EnviroTex jewelry clay. This is a self-hardening two-part epoxy clay, so you don't have to bake it or do anything else to cure it other than just let it dry overnight. I have a bezel setting. It's a nice deep bezel by Amate Studios. Then I've got a Nunn design Hummingbird charm and some Swarovski crystal Chatons. And then for my colorant, I'm using CASTIN Craft transparent blue dye. And then for tools, I have a magical pick, a pair of cutters, and some gloves. So first off, we're going to cut off the loop of our hummingbird charm. Very easy to do. Just snip it off and set it aside. So that is ready to go, and we're actually done with our cutters for this project. Now you'll always want to wear gloves when you're working with the jewelry clay. One pair of gloves does come with your clay, but you get so much clay, and you can see we've actually already used a bit of this, that you're going to want to invest in some extra gloves. And they're very inexpensive. We keep a couple boxes of 100 pairs in the office here. So here we're going to open it up. As you can see, we've already used some, and it's great because they come in these tubs that are very nice to just close the lid on and seal and use for another time. So this is very easy to just use a little and keep the rest for later. So to get equal parts, the easiest way to go about that is to make a little ball that is approximately half the amount you think you're going to need for your project. That looks about right. And then you're going to make a matching ball from the other tub. So equal parts of A and B. So line them up. Okay, well, I need to pinch off some. The curing process for this clay does not begin until the two clays are mixed. So you can do this for as long as you need to get the right measurements. Then once they are mixed, you'll have a couple hours of working time, and then you'll want to let it cure overnight. So take your balls, squish them together. You can see this is very soft. It's also quite sticky, and it's going to become more sticky the more you work with it. So at this point, you see we've got a lot of marbling happening, a lot of striations. The goal is to have a nice uniform color. And the color is just going to be a kind of a neutral matte bone color. What we're going to then do is we're going to add the dye to color it. But that's actually kind of nice because you get so much of this clay and you can make so many different projects with it that you can color all the different, projects you're going to make a different color just with a different dye or pigment. That way you don't have to buy different colors of clay. So it's nice actually that starts just as a neutral. I am going to be using a transparent dye, which is going to give it more of a faded, washed out look, but you could of course use an opaque dye as well. Okay, so I'm just blending it together. Okay, and that looks good to me. So after you've blended it together, you're going to add your dye. And you want to start off with as little as possible to begin with, and then add more as needed to get your desired color. So let's just try to do a drop. Okay, and this is going to get real messy. So I can already tell I want it to be a little bit darker, so I'm going to add another drop. Now when you're working with a small amount of clay, and this is not the smallest amount of clay in the world, but it's not a large amount either, you want to be careful that you don't add too much of the liquid colorant because it might affect its curing process. It might not actually end up as a nice hard cure in the end if you add too much liquid to this. And actually we're pretty close to the color I want. I just want something really subtle in the background for my hummingbird. Yeah, I like that color. Something that would look good with a pair of jeans, just a nice denim. Okay, so now we're gonna keep rolling it until all the color variation is gone. Unless, of course, you want that marbled look. You could leave some of the streaks in there. Okay, so now we're gonna go ahead and roll it so that it mimics the shape of our bezel. We have a nice long oval. Doesn't have to be exact, but if we do get an approximate shape to start with, it will save us some effort here in a little bit. Okay. And then just press it into place. And then I'm going to try to find a finger that didn't have a lot of the clay on it already, because this is actually pretty sticky at this point. You could just change your gloves as well, but I want to smooth out my clay. What I'm doing is I'm really not applying any pressure. I'm just letting my finger slide over the top of the clay. If I was to apply pressure, I would end up dragging the clay, which is not what I want. I just want to smooth out my fingerprints. There we go. I'm going to take my gloves off and I'll just dispose them. Okay, so now I'm going to put my hummingbird in my pendant. So I'm just going to grab this little guy, line him up where I want him, and carefully press him down into place. I've got my magical pick here that I'm going to use for my rhinestones, but I can also just go ahead and use it to help secure him. Now I'm going to take my crystals and pick them up with the magical pick and just set them down into the clay wherever I want them to be. You can do a random pattern. You can use more crystals than this. You actually get quite a few crystals when you order them. So this was just a partial amount that I had here. So you can do as many or as few as you want and put them wherever you want. Just got to turn them right side up to be able to grab them. Well, if you've done this before, you know that you'll spend some time turning them the right way. Take a look at what you've got and see if you like it or if you want to add a few more. I actually kind of really like that. It's simple and subtle. Let me just do a couple more. Maybe over here. One more right up here. Okay, there we go. And he is done. Now I don't need to bake him. He doesn't need to have any other adhesive added to keep him, the hummingbird, in place or the stones in place. This pendant is ready to go. You can find the EnviroTex jewelry clay, the dies, the stones, the charms, pendants, and everything else you need to do projects just like this at Beadaholique.com.